So I watched the drama last night, and I feel like what this film needed. So I gave it 4.5, which is probably, this is what I mean. That's like pretty good. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we know that in terms of ratings, average is like 3.5 around there. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I think a 4.5 is good. And for me, when I finished watching it, I couldn't find anything really that like I felt like needed changing. I tried to follow my metric system on Letterboxd as well, but sometimes it's a bit difficult because sometimes I don't know. Sometimes for me, I will give a movie a 5 if honestly I feel like there really is nothing else for me to really say about it. But in terms of when it has everything that it needs to have. But then I guess now when I think about it and I think about me rating 4.5, I'm like, actually, I understand why. Because I suppose there was something that I feel like could have made the movie even better. And then and obviously I'll tell you what that is, of course, because that's the point of the episode. But like why I think it could have been even better is actually if they'd had something else, like I guess because obviously they found out the fact that Emma was going to was yes she was close to planning a school shooting. That's fine. We found that they obviously found out at the dinner scene, and it happened when she was 15 years old. And obviously then I was a bit like, probably what would have been better if they had something else, like her current self, do you know what I mean, her current adult self. If they had added something in the movie, that would have been another thing that would have been to question her morality. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I feel like the movie was mainly like trying to, I guess, show and push forwards, like people's moralities. Do you know what I mean? What people do you know what I mean, and what makes people do bad things. You know what I mean? Those, or I guess like, yeah, it's like the drama and how that whole dinner scene is them all just talking about things that they've done. And then obviously, yeah, Emma's one just comes as like, I guess, the biggest one out of them all. Even though, of course, hey, for me, I thought when that scene came on, I was a bit like, yes, I was like, okay, that's bad. But then I also thought she was 15. And then also when I watched Logan's video, so I'm obviously putting that video in the description, I was like, okay, me and Logan, yeah, we both had the same thoughts as well. So that's why when I watched that video, I was like, well, yeah. I was like, and then his video is called The Genius of the Drama. And I was literally like, yes, I agree with everything he said. And then I think exactly our ratings were both the same. So I was literally like, okay, like, I do think that although, like, that's what I mean. I do think although Emma was wrong to almost plan a school shooting, the fact of the matter is she's better than like, do you know what I mean? She's better than that whole table because she had a thought to carry that out, but then she changed her ways afterwards. That's also what Logan was saying. Like she decided to what was it? Yeah, go against, like, as in go against gun violence. Of course, she at first she was on board with it, but then afterwards she then decided that she wanted to be against it. And that's like, do you know what I mean? At least a person can be self-aware in themselves to say, oh yeah, I wanted to obviously do this thing, this really bad thing, first and foremost, but now actually I've realized I've seen the error of my ways and I think that's actually really bad and really wrong. So I'm like, I literally get that. But then of course what I'm saying to you about what could have been another element in the movie is that of course there could have been something else where like, where we would have been able to see yes, Emma as a person, you know what I mean? But even more so, like for example, if they had come across a stash of cash, it would have been interesting to see what Emma would have done with that money. I just mean, like, that's what I'm saying. I feel like that's what maybe the movie needed for me. I meant something else that would have made me think, well, do you know what I mean? She's not that bad, you know what I mean? You guys are making her be in guilt over something that happened almost 15 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? Something that she has to, I guess, relive. And that's what I mean. Charlie, right? Charlie kept asking her questions about it when he found out about it, and I was like, why can't he just drop it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, even though I guess if you find something out like that, you're not going to drop it, but I just mean, like, why are you going to like prod open the open wound? You know what I mean? She already felt like regret and shame over like bringing it up, and then obviously, and the way that Rachel jumped down her throat as well, because Rachel was not holding back. Like Rachel was like, you know my cousin's in a wheelchair, and Emma was like, whoa, Sorry. She's like, I didn't know that. Do you know what I mean? So, and then if she had known that, she probably wouldn't have even confessed in the first place. But it was a bit just like, yeah, it was crazy. And then obviously Rachel, like, exactly. So the main thing was that the guy said in the video, which I also agreed with, yeah, was that Rachel is the true villain of the movie, because again, this is what I mean. She came for Emma. She kind of wanted to feel like she was better than Emma for some reason, but then it's like, no, because you locked a child in a closet, and that was insane. And even Mike, I feel like Mike and Rachel, they were both as bad as each other, because Mike decided to use the person that exactly used someone as a shield. I was like, that's so crazy. If he had said he ran away, I'd have been like, okay, fine. Do you know what I mean? But him saying he used the person as a shield when they were being attacked by a dog, I was like, that is crazy. Yeah, I was like, this is what I mean. Both their instances, like both their stories, are them, I guess, not helping people, and like on purpose. That's what I'm saying. That's crazy. Not helping people and on purpose. Like, I guess there's all about when you help someone, but really it's like, oh, when you're actually doing it, like, and you know that you're doing it like on purpose, which was crazy. And like, Rachel was just scary. And then Rachel, she wouldn't have been at my wedding, because obviously it's obvious that, you know what I mean? It's obvious that she's out for me. Do you know what I mean? Even when they were doing the speeches, and then she was like laughing the loudest, and I was like, well, this is not what a classic maid of honor does. You know what I mean? They're not gonna be like laughing at the speech and like being the loudest one there, even though we're like maybe contrary to believe, yes, the maid of honor might be the drunkest in the room, but like, do you know what I mean? She may be, but we're also not going to be like that either. You know what I mean? Not have that conduct, I mean. And I guess right, she laughed specifically when obviously the dad was talking about Emma being into guns, and it was a bit like, oh, okay. Like, we see what you're doing, do you know what I mean? And then, the fact of the matter was crazy, because Charlie made it seem like it was okay, right, that because he found out that his fiance wanted to do a mass shooting when she was 15, that meant that he excused him wanting to cheat. That's what I mean. And I guess the movie also just, again, highlights, I guess, like, I think, yeah, this is something that Lucas mentioned too. And I keep going back to Lucas' video, but because it was really good, I mean, I'm using it as a case study. But, like, of course, like, obviously, Charlie, the movie was mainly just highlighting how people really receive news, and then like Charlie obviously took it not well, so did Rachel, but she wanted to convince people she was taking it well, but she wasn't. And then obviously Mike, he wasn't really doing much, but that's because he's just the husband, like, isn't he just Rachel's husband, and he didn't even really seem like he did much. And then Rachel, that's what I mean, Rachel is the pants in that relationship, and you can already tell. It's already obvious, because he didn't even really say anything. And also when she was getting mad, he also like didn't do much either. He was just like, oh yeah, Rachel, I'll call the Uber. And I was like, well, yeah, of course you would. Classic yes man. Do you know what I mean? You're not even doing anything. Like, literally, she's shouting at Emma, and you're just there like, oh, okay, like, don't worry, it's fine. And then Charlie's like, are you serious? And then it was like, do you know what I mean? It was actually crazy. But this movie generally just, again, had like, obviously it's made by A24, so it had literally the A24 feel to it anyways, where you're literally questioning everything. I mean, you're questioning everything, and you're a bit like, wow, what would I do in Charlie's shoes? But the fact of the matter is, I do know, that's what I mean, when I think about Charlie, I do know that I wouldn't have a breakdown about it and like almost like cheat. I mean I wouldn't do that. So yeah, that would not be anything on my list. I might have a hard time with confronting it, because that's completely normal. Like, you know what I mean? He threw the mug away that had a gun on it. That's fine. That's all normal stuff. Like, right, you're not gonna be like extremely normal with it afterwards, but that's what I'm saying. The breakdown and then kissing another woman, that was a bit like, wow, how did we get there? I was like, how did we get there? And I was like, aren't you getting married like tomorrow? I was like, why are you getting married? Like, I don't know, like in a few hours. Like, that was insane. Do you know what I mean? And then of course, then the woman at his work had to come in the room there because obviously Emma was like, oh yeah, I heard you say something about a shooting, and then obviously she was like, well, yeah, like Charlie kissed me. And then I was like, what do you mean he kissed you? Like, and it was just like, yeah. And it's like, worst of your worries as well. This is what I mean. Like, I feel like that's what I was thinking about it as well. Because in terms of hearing about Emma's secret, you think about Charlie, like, cheating on Emma was maybe 10 times worse than her with the mass shooting, if that makes sense. Because that's infidelity. And telling you, infidelity, we said that's one of the, like, that is one of the worst things, because especially because he was just about to marry her. Do you know what I mean? If he was just about to, so that's even more so crazy. And then this is what I mean, the whole thing with Emma's whole thing is that she was 15. It was a mistake. Plus, also, I think I've been seeing lots of stuff about it, but like, you know, she was isolated, she was alone. The first thing I thought was that she just, in my head, not even like, oh yeah, she seemed like somebody who would do something like that, but I kind of mean in the way that, like, you know, she didn't have community and she was all alone. So in my head I did kind of think like, oh, if she is all alone, then really what's really to stop her to say that she's not gonna try to like do something like that? Like, you could tell, like, people would put, like, exactly, she was getting barged and like people were telling her that she smelled, and like I was like, well, yeah, she's someone being bullied. You know what it reminds me of? Actually, it reminds me of 13 Reasons Why, because there was that guy, I think his name was Ty? Yeah, I think his name was Ty, right? And everyone was horrible to him, and they used to stick his head down the toilet, and then obviously he decided to get a gun, right? And then that's when he blew up the whole school. Like, okay, 13 Reasons Why. I know probably I'm unlocking a memory for people, but honestly, like, that is generally what it reminded me of, because I was like, yes, like, I not to say I understand it because it's bad, but I meant in the way that I was like, of course it just had like signs pointing towards it. I mean, so in the way of being like, oh, like, that's why, you know, because obviously, right, he was isolated, he was bullied, and then obviously he was like, oh well, it's not even gonna matter if I pick up a gun because I'm invisible anyway, no one even see me. He's like, but they'll see me with a big rifle. That's what's gonna happen. So that's kind of what also it reminded me of. And then obviously that's why I was a bit like, well, that makes sense. And then I also guess you can also think about it this way, because you're also a bit like, oh well, Emma didn't even after that, she didn't blossom into having any true friends either. It's very sad actually. I mean, so like, you know, she meets Charlie, but it's like she didn't even really still have people around her even in her adult years to really, I guess, comfort her and like give her community. And everyone needs that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Everyone needs that, because then that's why, right? So this is how terrorists are made. Even though, do you know what I mean? Even though they have community, but I'm saying like you still need people who will like ground you. And like obviously, if you're grounded, you're not going to be thinking about doing anything like that. So there we are. But then I also thought, when her dad was doing the speech, I also thought, okay, like, it's not to say that, you know, her love for guns was like completely random though. So that's what I also thought, because her dad was a military man. So I kind of thought like, okay, like, right, maybe she's also, that's what I mean, maybe she's also into guns because her dad was in the military, and maybe she just wanted to kind of, right, exactly, like, mirror him. That's what I'm saying. I was like, oh, maybe it's not completely weird and random, because I don't know, I can understand that to a certain degree. If it's like, you know, you see your dad going off to war and you're a bit like, well, do you know what I mean? What's to say that I can't, you know, pick up a gun and try to shoot things too, you know? Just for the fun of it though, not because, right, exactly, not because I actually want to cause any harm to anybody. So as well, I also thought there was that also element to it, but good gosh, like, and Rachel was just, yeah, she was just insufferable, really. I was literally just like, what is her deal? And then I think, well, they were annoyed that she wanted to obviously drop out to be the maid of honor, but no, it was, as I said, if that was me, I would have said, yeah, man, don't come. Like, I don't even need one anymore. I don't even need a maid of honor anymore. And I'm like, not unless, like, do you know what I mean? Because it's you, I don't need one. And then I just kind of, I think when I go back to the friends thing, it's just because, like, right, Rachel was literally her only friend, seeing as, right, because she met Charlie, and then Mike is a friend of Charlie's, so then she met him right through Mike. Do you know what I mean? Met Rachel through Mike. And I was like, so you kind of basically just had to settle for Rachel. Like, that's what I'm saying. There was nobody else there who you could really I guess, right, make friends with. And I was a bit like, that's actually really sad. Like, there should be someone else out here. Do you know what I mean? Like, literally, there should be other people. She should Bro, she should have got into some, like, book reading club. Do you know what I mean? She likes books. We saw that in the very first scene. I was like, yes, you should probably find a book club. The community's there. Like, that's a good place for you to be. So I was talking about the book club, and then I was really thinking about, really, well, Emma needed that book club when she was younger. Do you know what I mean? I guess something like that would have helped her and preempted and also obviously prevented her going towards or even, I guess, yeah, well, contemplating the mass murder. Do you know what I mean? And I think, obviously, so let me even move on now to my second case study as well, because of course I was using Logan's video, which obviously will be in the description. I was using Logan's video, and then obviously now my second case study is Sage Rain's video, which was The Drama is Very Romantic. I think, to be honest, I had a whole different way as how I thought this episode would go, but then I'm kind of like, I'm just gonna keep repeating all the stuff that, do you know what I mean, all the stuff that we already know. You know what I'm saying? In terms of the fact that, was what Emma did, was it wrong? Yes, it was wrong. Do you know what I mean? We know that. Do you know what I mean? We know it's wrong, okay? But what we do know is and what's the main importance is what the movie is showing to us and what the message is, which obviously I feel like from Sage's video as well, the main message is obviously grace and acceptance, and obviously also performing. So I feel like that is the main three things, you know what I mean? So who deserves forgiveness, who deserves grace, like all of these important factors in our day-to-day lives. I think one thing that really interested me about Sage's video as well was that it says it just takes a bad day to be influenced by gun violence, and I thought that was really interesting, because obviously in his video he was talking about how obviously America, that's something that they obviously struggle with. They struggle with gun violence, and that obviously it's not like, do you know what I mean, it's not hard to possess a firearm. So it's like it doesn't really take much to be like swept up in all of that, or it doesn't take much to really be influenced by it. I mean, that's why I mentioned about the fact that, you know, her dad was obviously in the war, but then I don't really know if there is a connection between that. Do you know what I mean? In terms of him being a military man and Emma liking guns, I really don't know if the connection is really there. I do think it's more so with what Sage was focusing on, which is obviously to do with like the pressures of society, and that the only reason why she didn't go through with it was because she obviously someone died, and then obviously her friend also died in that car crash as well, so she was just surrounded by like a lot of pain, but she was really able to, after that, realize that's not what she wanted to do. It's a good thing that she was able to realize, you know what I mean? And I think obviously also Sage said about her character as a person as well, and how we saw her character, like, I guess before, like, Rachel did, or before all of this came out. Do you know what I mean? Rachel's just going to take what she said in that moment, do you know what I mean, just off the basis of everything, and forget everything else, because again, she's just someone that she knows through Charlie. Do you know what I mean? She doesn't really know Emma. Do you know what I mean? But like, we know Emma. Do you know what I mean? When we see her in the clips and we see how, you know, she likes to laugh and she's friendly and she's nice and she gives people grace, which was again Sage's main thing about giving people grace, and how we can see how Emma is a very empathetic and kind person, which is something that Charlie later on, you know, takes out of his speech, out of the vows, of course. And because he obviously said she was an empathetic person, but after that there was a whole shift which kind of made him feel like, oh, maybe she's not this empathetic person that I thought she was. And obviously that goes on to say about Charlie's issues with how he wants people to view him. And I guess, right, even if it's not something about him, I mean, he's like, obviously he's with Emma, so in throw it actually displays him, like it's a reflection of him, which I do think is very interesting anyways, because I suppose, yes, when you are around people and you are surrounded and you stand by people, it does, you know what I mean, it does show you, like, you know what I mean, as for who you are. And again, if you're around someone who you know has done a bad deed, do you know what I mean, it says like, what does it say about you? Do you know what I mean? But then obviously Sage does go on to say that we have to accept people for who they are and not who they were. But I think in terms of that, like, statement anyways, like, that's a very broad statement, I mean, because my whole thing is like, you can accept people exactly for who they are, like, that's the main importance, but you do have to factor in, do you know what I mean, in some of the things they do. And also, because for me, I also think it's about like just the circumstance, and also the okay, I wouldn't say the time either, but it's there's a lot of factors that come into place for accepting someone for who they are. Like, I just mean that these things make factors, you know what I mean? I meant they can't just be discarded. You're not just going to be like, because you find out someone does it, that, you know, it's not something to I guess, like, look at them differently. You want to assess it, do you know what I mean? But it's like, you don't like, I'm just saying, you don't want to forget about it. That's my whole thing. I feel like I'm getting lost up in it, but I'm saying, like, you don't want to just immediately discard whatever it is anyone has done from their past, you know what I mean? Because you just still never know. So there we go. And that obviously, on top of about accepting people, obviously Sage was also talking about like your true self and your current self, and who, like, you are as as you, like, who you are as a person. And then of course, I guess he brings up the question of, like, you know, it is right, is Emma's younger self, is that her? Although, do you know what I mean, I think no, because this is kind of, for me, how I view the movie anyways, is because I feel like it's not to say that, because I think, yes, people can change, do you know what I mean, but you really want to see that work of them changing. That's the main thing. You also want to see them take accountability as well. That's also important. So there we go. There's a lot of factors that come into play of understanding, you know, someone's past. You understand? Like, in terms of like, oh, when someone says, yes, I've done this, and then you're saying, well, what is it that you've done after that? Do you know what I mean? What have you done after that to make it seem like that's not who you are anymore? Like, do you know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. And so we're really looking at it like, okay, like, this was Emma's past self as a like 15-year-old. In a way, she's completely like, I meant dissolve that. I just mean that a lot of the time you do generally what's it called, like, we do evolve, do you know what I mean, as humans, I mean, and as like, in terms of like, obviously butterflies and all that stuff. So, you know, all that metamorphosis stuff, I'm just saying, us as people, we go through that too. A person who we was like a few years ago will not be the same person that we are today. Do you know what I mean? And that's literally it feels like an obvious thing to say, but I'm just saying, like, of course that is the case. So it's like, we really have to factor in like who Emma is, in terms of like who she was. Do you know what I mean? And if we really felt like, do you know what I mean? Because that's what Charlie was doing. So this was something Sage also made me think about too. Like, Charlie afterwards, when he found out about the news, he was kind of thinking, oh, like, oh, I found out this news and there were signs there the whole time. Do you know what I mean? He was kind of making it seem like, oh yeah, Emma's always been a violent person. But it's like, no, like, do you know what I mean? He was just kind of trying to assess it in that way. And then, of course, he was seeing the flashes of like how the wedding would actually go. But then, of course, it didn't actually go like that. But this is the thing. And then something very interesting that Sage said, because, of course, yeah, like, I think he was saying we all hate Rachel and that's normal. But Rachel is obviously a mirror. Like, again, she's just a mirror to society, and that she's kind of what we would expect ourselves to be. I mean, so if we were sitting across Emma, we would probably be Rachel, or we know, that's the thing, we even probably know someone like Rachel, and like, obviously, yes, so we know someone like Rachel, or it could be us. Do you know what I mean? Someone says something to us and immediately our first thing is to be on the defensive, to come across judgmental, and not really, like, do you know what I mean, not really ask any questions about it, just immediately like shut down about it and be like, well, do you know what I mean, this is who you are, verbatim, that's it. Like, do you know what I mean? We're not gonna really say anything else. We're just gonna come off aggressive. Do you know what I mean? That's gonna be our first reaction. But this is the thing, I think it was interesting when he said that, because again, I've been just trying to assess this movie, like, you know what I mean, it's really that's what I mean. I think it's a really like good movie in that way, that it's honestly like, even after you watch it, there's still loads of stuff that just come up and just pop up, and obviously I guess it feels like unanswered, but I mean in the way that like you just reassess it after a while. Even when you're done assessing it, you're going to assess it again, because it's literally like, I didn't think about Rachel that way. Of course, I thought, how I said earlier in the beginning, like, I thought Rachel, you know, she's the villain. It kind of gave that to me. I think I hated her, what was it? For me, yes, it was her superiority. I didn't like that. Do you know what I mean? Because, in terms of how they were all sharing, and then, of course, Emma says, do you know what I mean? Emma says what she says, and then, of course, do you know what I mean, everyone kind of just disregards what everyone else was said, and they kind of just focus on Emma's. It kind of, okay, so actually, me saying on that point, right, I should probably read my review that I was that I need to post for my May watches. But obviously, that sentence just made me remember what I wrote, so I was like, this is a good time to say it. So obviously I wrote I was gonna say on Letterboxd, no, on Substack, which is coming out like obviously at the end of May, but probably like early June, because again, it's like my watches that I do a monthly watches every single month. So obviously, yes, I watched a drama this month, duh. So obviously, I wrote that a wedding that doesn't end in the honeymoon happily ever after. I like it when movies turn the camera on you and asks you what you do if the person you met wasn't who you thought they were. A few days after I assessed how I felt about the movie, I thought about how great the movie would have been if they had something else aside from the mistake Emma made when she was 15 to show us what kind of person she is. But she is now. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, Emma didn't perform like other people did at that dinner table, and she accepted her shame with it. Everyone else acted like what they did wasn't a big deal, and that's why when you ask who the villain is, you don't immediately say Emma. You think about everyone else who sat at the table. Emma tried to redeem herself after it. At least she was the classic type of being isolated from others and having no community, that it makes you fantasize things and be close to pulling the trigger. But what matters most is that you didn't do it. Charlie calls Rachel out on her behavior, and she's shocked because when they all confessed, they wanted someone to be the pariah, even though they were all sharing. Every conversation needs that, someone to drag down, even though everyone is revealing their vulnerabilities. Them starting over was interesting to me, not that I felt like it changed anything for them, mind you, but that they'd start over with a clean slate. The relationship began with a performance and ended with one too. Yeah, that's why it was a good moment to read the review, because I was like, honestly, I just thought about how, like, what I obviously wrote I think I wrote it like the other day, but it's like, I was generally like, Yeah, I think that's so weird to do that, and I don't know why. I think this is I when I said, "Oh, every conversation needs that." I do think people like doing that in conversations, like in terms of how you'll all go around the table, and then that's what I'm saying, and it's very weird because I don't feel like it should be like that. If that makes sense, I meant in terms of like if you're all sitting and you're at a dinner and you're all sharing, why should it be a thing where there has to be, exactly, where there has to be this type of nailing, or this type of like hanging, you know what I mean? Some sort of like ritual where it's like with axes, but that's what I kind of envision it to be because obviously I think people will enjoy that. That's what I mean. So in a way, that whole scene kind of also made me think about society as well, just in the way that like I guess we all like a big dramatic story, and then we kind of also, the thing is, we like a dramatic story, then we kind of want to drag down the person while doing it too. Like, do you know what I mean? We want to hear it, but like we also want to like judge after hearing it. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a way to do those things. Do you know what I mean? I meant there's a way to share things all together and then not make it be like it's kind of like an attack, as how it was with Emma and all of them at that table. Do you know what I mean? It just obviously turned into attack rather than like what it was kind of supposed to be, which was in your in your head you think like it was supposed to be some kind of like safe space, probably. I meant in terms of just everyone being like, I did this then, I did that then, and we're like, okay, yeah, you did that, and then you say, well, because the fact of the matter is, this is what I mean, it didn't go how I feel like an average kind of conversation would go, like in terms of like if someone says something like that, your first question will be like, why? Do you know what I mean? And then I think that was also something I wrote in my notes as well, because I said, why didn't he do it? Because I think I remember that was something that was happening during the film. I forget what it was about, but I think it was when the woman at Charlie's work, she was telling him that story, and I think that obviously, yeah, or no, she said to him, right, she would ask, oh, why didn't he do it? And I was like, right, exactly, that's a key question. Why is it no one really thinks to ask those why questions? You know what I mean? It's more of just to pile on rather than to really pull back the layers. Do you know what I mean? More so just be like, oh yes, you did this, you're evil, you're bad. Well, like, first of all, but why did you do it? Why did you get there? So really, if you think about it, I feel like in a roundabout way. So like, now that we're getting now to the crux of the whole thing, I'm like, really, when you think about it, there isn't really a true villain in this movie, if you're honest, because like, this is what I mean. It's not a true villain. Because it wasn't supposed to, like, I don't think it was supposed to be like that. Do you know what I mean? The message of the movie, like I said, we know what it is, right? And I don't think it's really supposed to be a fact of the matter of, like, I guess, pinpointing like who the villain is. Like, obviously, as I said, Rachel is that classic judgmental person, but I just wouldn't really say that right, it feels like one of those movies where you're like, yeah, no one's the villain. Do you know who's the villain? The world is. I think those are so funny. But no, like, that's kind of that, like, this too as well. And I think also with Sage's title, like the drama is very romantic. I think that's very interesting because obviously, I guess to compare like both videos anyways, because I like doing that because again, they're both the case studies I've used for this episode anyways, is like Logan's is like the genius of the drama. So in terms of like saying what's so amazing about it, and then again Sage's is like, again, to focus on Emma and Charlie's relationship as a whole. Do you know what I mean? So I think obviously he made an interesting point where he was saying how like Emma obviously accepted that she confessed to everyone about the mass murder, but that obviously she came to Charlie at the end, even after, do you know what I mean, even after she found out about the fact that, right, about the fact that he cheated and he kissed that woman at his workplace, that she's still then, and that still goes to show her true nature, that she would be willing to open her arms up to him and forgive him and to start over again. And I think it's interesting because, of course, the movie starts out with the starting over and it ends with starting over. Do you know what I mean? And I think those, if it, right, a movie starting the same way, well, no, a movie ending the same way it starts, sorry. I was like, it's in reverse actually. But no, I think those are always really interesting. And then, of course, it just, again, even more shows Emma's, like, true nature. Do you know what I mean? It's even more so shows her true nature because she's someone who is willing to like, she's not, like, exactly, she's not quick to judge people in the same way that, exactly, that someone like Rachel would be, and she's also someone who is open to, like, second chances, you know, like, for me, like, exactly, me or you, we might not do that same thing, do you know what I mean? So actually, I was thinking in my head, when I was like, when Charlie did that, and then obviously she found out about it at her wedding, I was literally like, no. I'm like, I don't think that I would do that. But I think obviously the movie's trying to show to us that it's about exactly how Emma and Charlie differ as people, and how they really receive, like, news, and, like, and I think I said in my notes, yes, how people confront to the uncomfortable truth. Do you know what I mean? So it really does show that a lot too. So, and it just shows the difference. Like, Charlie cares about what other people think, and Emma doesn't so much. You know what I mean? Like, she has all this shame that's, I guess, like, self-inflicted. I mean, like, as in, it's shame that she carries on her own, but it's not to do with anyone else around her. And then also, I think, remember Sage said in the video, like, she was able to, like, hug and, like, I guess, remember she broke down to the person who bullied her, and I was like, well, I also forgot about that too, to be fair. So that's what I mean, you always forget a lots of different things until you sit down and really watch videos. That's why I love watching video essays anyways. Do you know what I mean? I'm a huge video essay advocate. I said I need one, and I definitely always need one, exactly, after a movie, maybe even just after. I think I did do that actually with this movie anyways. I think it's true because, oh right, no, remember when I started talking to you guys about Logan's video, I watched Logan's video right after finishing the drama, because I generally obviously wanted to right, just hear it from, like, hear someone else's point of view, and I think obviously because when I first finished it, like, off the fresh, just fresh off the news, I was like, wow, like, I was like, it's interesting because I was feeling like, you know, everyone's focusing on the fact that Emma was gonna do mass murder, like, everyone's focusing on that, or doing the school shooting, and I was a bit like, you know what I mean, I was a bit like, Emma, I don't judge you, do you know what I mean? I think I felt like that. So then this is what I mean, I think this movie kind of makes you question about who you are in the midst of all of this, you know what I mean? Exactly. Are you Rachel, or, like, are you someone else? You know what I mean? Or I don't know, because I think also Sage said when she said it at the table, you could see Charlie wasn't really, like, yeah, he wasn't really that bothered, but, like, it was more so Rachel's reaction which made him feel weird. You know what I mean? Like, if Rachel outburst wasn't that big, he probably might not have been as bothered, because obviously, you know, I think you can tell from Charlie, maybe he's a bit of a people pleaser, maybe, because that's what I'm saying. He cares about people's perceptions, and I guess maybe he doesn't really, like, care about his own. And also, like, you know, he has a lot of the the anxiety. So even Sage was talking about that, the anxiety of the painting, like the painting that he has, like the red one, which is the Blob, and kind of just, I guess, yeah, drowning in that anxiety, but, like, you're not really going to, like, do anything about it. Do you know what I mean? And in the way that, and that does make a lot of sense in terms of how I was saying before that, he just kept prodding Emma about it a lot. But it's like, that's what I mean. You could see that's how his anxiety was presenting itself, in terms of just like prodding her about it and asking about it over and over again. But then it's like, that's not really helpful, because do you know what I mean? It's not helpful because, Emma is still somewhat like healing from that. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like she really wants to relive it. And also, I feel like we also have to bear in mind, like, she was super like courageous to even confess something like that in front of all these people. That's what I'm saying. It would be like, generally, it would honestly be like confessing that to a bunch of strangers. And I know this is the thing, a lot of the time we all joke and say like, yes, I'm an open book, I overshare, but you do know though, some things you won't say to some people. That's what I mean. We all know that we're like super selective on these things, because it's like, if you're gonna just say something in front of a bunch of strangers who like don't know anything about you, then it's generally like, do you know what I mean? They really aren't going to, right, they're not going to like sympathize with you. I just mean in the way that, like, if you say it to, I guess, exactly your closest friends, they will obviously try to rationalize it in the best way that they can. A lot of the time, I feel though, sometimes they might, I guess, be on your side, because this is what I mean, like rose tinted glasses maybe, because if it's around people that you do know, then there's a chance that they will enable you. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, there is this, like, it is very interesting. That is also, again, another very interesting element, just in terms of who you'll tell things to, and I guess how that will always go, because again, this is what I mean. So Rachel obviously is someone who may not obviously know Emma as well, so she's able to literally just, not have those tinted glasses on, and literally just be like, well, Emma must be like, she must be the lowest of the low, and she must be evil, even though it's like, yeah, it's like, even though she doesn't know a thing about her. Do you know what I mean? And then she, again, is not thinking about what would have led her up to like that point. She wouldn't be thinking anything like that. So I'm gonna go back to some of the points that I have, because obviously I think I was going through ones that I've already spoken about. So yeah, kind of just checking those off, but it's so interesting anyways. I mean, I think, oh yeah, so this note was a meet cute gone wrong, pretending to have read the book. And obviously, because Charlie even wrote that in his speech as well, about when he spoke to her about when he spoke to her about the book, and he's like, oh well, I didn't read it. And I'm like, ugh, like, you know what I mean? I didn't like that. I didn't like that, because it's like, I feel like people, I don't know. And again, I mean, I think meet cutes are very important anyways, so maybe, right, as a romantic, that's probably why. I'm a bit like, I don't like that, because it's a bit like, okay, you're just gonna talk to me when you haven't actually read it. And I think people like that though anyways, because they say it goes to show someone's, I guess, intentions and effort. That's what I mean, in terms of like doing it even though like you don't know a thing about it. But I still think it matters more if you do know. Do you know what I mean? I think it reminded me a bit of right, the meet cute thing reminded me a bit of obviously the episode that I spoke about, my previous episode, sorry, on here, where I spoke about something very bad is going to happen, and how they had that whole meet cute thing, and it was like their meet cute was actually a lie. And I'm like, why do people like that? Why do people like meet cutes that are actually lies, or well, formed on lies anyway? No, like, they start off with lies. So I think that's even, remember what I read to you guys anyways, when I said their relationship began with a performance and ended with one too. So obviously the performance at their wedding, and then initially when they first meet, because it's like, why would you even want to start off that way with somebody? Do you know what I mean? I think I said something about like in my first two notes, I said something about like most of the time someone compliments you when trying to make conversation, not like saying I read this book and then in fact not reading it. Like, that's what I mean. And I think that's what I mean. People, I guess this is what I mean, this might be the difference in terms of people who are like genuine like romantics or people who are just like, I think there's a difference between that anyways. People who do care about these things, so that's probably someone like me. We that's what I mean. We would be hurt by those things. That's what I mean. I'm saying if in terms of anyone listening, I mean, and like, you may not think that's a big deal, but of course, like, for someone like me, I would be like, oh, I wouldn't like that, because again, I would feel like, well, like, you lied to me, like, even when we just met, like, so I'm like, it would probably be a bit like, oh, like, it would be a bit like weird. So yeah. And I think that's why, right, that's why in something very bad is going to happen, like, Rachel was upset about that too. So like, obviously, yeah, just to reference, because I'm always referencing, like, that obviously I remember Rachel was upset because obviously she was like, oh, like, she was like, Nikki, I thought that, you know what I mean, that, do you know what I mean, we happened to meet by chance, you know what I mean? And she was like, she just had that her meet cute was like a fairy tale, when in fact it wasn't that. And I think that's very awful. Like, when you realize that actually your meet cute is not all it's laid up to be, it can be like super like disappointing. So like, I think like I would feel the same way too. And actually, as someone who likes to read anyway, that would probably annoy me even more also. That's what I mean. I'm also saying to you guys, like, I know it might be a bit too much to get annoyed about, but I'm just saying, probably as a reader too, I'm a bit like, oh, if someone was to say, oh, like, oh, I pretended that I read the book that you were reading, and I was like, no, I don't like that. Like, you know, it was just like, people like, oh, I just wanted to speak to you, and it's like, no, but that's lazy. That is lazy. You could have said anything else. Do you know what I mean? You could have said anything else. It's like how, I don't know, like, okay, I was going to say like in Twilight, remember? So, maybe I'm only bringing up Twilight because of Edward Pattinson, because of Robert Pattinson, probably. But when Mike's like, do you know what I mean? Mike's like, oh, are you liking the rainbow? And we're like, we're like, okay, like, that doesn't work that well either. But do you know what I mean? It's a conversation starter, and it's also not a lie. Do you know what I mean? This is what I'm saying. These two things, it's like, it's not a lie. So we actually appreciate that, because you started the conversation, and it might be something small, but like, it's whatever. That's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you guys, at least it's not a flat out lie. if it's something just more interesting, then yeah. Or for me, if someone, I guess, even because obviously everyone knows, like, I really love film. I mean, if someone was to just say to me and start talking about film to me, of course I would love that, just randomly, and they would just like come up with any movie. And then, but of course, if someone's talking to me about a movie, I'm not going to say that I've seen it though, because I feel like with movies you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, as in, you can't make it up, because if they start asking you questions about it and you don't know what happens, then it's just not gonna work. Like, it's not gonna work. Like, how is the conversation going to flow? Except until probably you find a movie that you have probably watched, and then you guys can talk about it, and then that probably makes it easier. But it's just like, again, for me, I just think, right, I don't know, maybe a small thing, as I said, it may be a trivial tiny thing, but I don't think relationships should be made out of lies. But then that's, I guess, what this whole movie was like talking about, in terms of just performing, and that like lots of people do this. Do you know what I mean? In terms of lots of people do it, like, in this, in terms of performing, and in the hopes that, like, do you know what I mean, when you're performing it will work out for you. And it's like, well, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work on me. I'm like, you guys are like, no, but I'm like, no, it wouldn't work on me. Right. You guys will be like, oh, you're lying. I'm like, no, it would not work on me. If I find out later on in the line, we are getting a divorce. You gotta sign on the paper. That's what we're doing. Goodbye. See you. And then I'm like, you guys are like, oh, is that petty? I'm like, yes, but I like to be petty, so whatever. And this is what I mean. Pettiness is not a good trait, but you know, I do it because I said it matters about the principle at the end of the day. And that weddings are performative by design. And that, yeah, because I think Emma was saying, like, that was when they were doing the dancing scene, and she was a bit like, oh, why? She's like, why are we doing this? It feels fake. And I was like, well, yeah, but it's not. I don't know. That scene was very interesting to me though, because I was thinking it's not fake. Like, everyone dances at their wedding, but to say you don't have to do the dance that they want you to do, you can do anything. Like, literally, I think. And then obviously the woman said to her and said, yeah, weddings are performative, and we were like, yeah. They literally are. And then I feel like in terms of how weddings are performative also, sometimes we know that they are in terms of how like two people will get married, but it's not even for them. You know what I'm saying? That happens sometimes. People will be like, okay, we're getting married, but I'm doing it like for my mom, or I'm doing it for like my friends, and like basically it's just a party, but it's not like it's not like really like for the ritual that's happening though. Like, do you know what I mean? I think people sometimes get in their head about that, and they kind of forget what like it's genuinely about. Like, yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, it is interesting. I talked about marriage on here before, but this is what I mean. I feel like sometimes I may come across like anti-marriage, but like I don't mean to. I don't mean to come around to marriage. I just think my main thing when it comes to marriage is like, you know what I mean, it really does have to be right, you know, like the Cinderella shoe, it has to be right, it has to be a good fit. Like, not I'm not like gonna like put it on if it's bad. And then, oh yeah, so then this was a point I've already said, which was everyone was performing at the dinner and Emma was the only one who let her mask drop in bed. Or exactly. Yeah. I just think for her also, if I was Emma again, I mean, so I, like I said to you guys, in terms of just saying secrets, I would have read the room, because I would have been like, do I feel safe here, yes or no? Because that's what I'm saying, you generally do. And when it comes to like proper yes, when it comes to important delicate information, you just can't be saying that to any Tom, Dick or Harry. You can't do it. It's just not safe. I'm just saying, it's not safe. Emma knows that. That's what I mean. She learned her lesson. It's not safe, okay? Like, there are people listening. And then this one was something that also stayed with me throughout the whole movie as well, which was it's about the thought more than the action. And then I said reverse, it's okay if you think about something, it matters more if you go through it. But I feel like that's what I've been saying to you guys in like the whole entire like 52 minutes anyways. And I don't know why, and maybe it's my main argument, and maybe I don't know if it's a good one, but to me that is generally how I feel. I think even while I was watching, actually, because again, as I said, this statement stayed with me all the way through, but probably while I was watching, I was like, and because I guess when it came out, when Emma said the secret, I was a bit like, oh yeah, but I think I was thinking about I was thinking about that example when people get upset when obviously like their husband or someone says to them like, oh yeah, I had a dream and then I cheated on you in the dream, and you're a bit like, it's a bit weird, do you know what I mean? So I don't know, I was thinking about it in terms of that, do you know what I mean? And in terms of how even if like it's a dream, like, do you know what I mean? Is it bad? And I say yes, because when it comes to that, I say yeah, because that is your subconscious. And do you know what I mean? The subconscious, I say every time I say this, I say the subconscious, it's real, like I'm telling you right now. So that's why with that, I do think like with that, it's like, yes, you can't really just say that, oh, it's just a dream or it's a thoughtless thing. And it's like, no, there's thought in it, do you know what I mean? And it goes on to say that, right, there's thought in it, and you actually probably could see yourself doing it because it was in your dream. So that's what we're saying. But like, when I said it's okay if you think about something and that it matters more if you go through with it, obviously people might obviously say with Emma is like, you know, she dressed up, she held guns, and like I guess everyone was a bit like, hers was, it felt like she was more close to doing it rather than just yeah, rather than just a thought that you have, I mean, like, do you know what I mean, on a random. But as I said when I talk about Sage's point, I do think, like how he said with do you know what I mean, with how we all have thoughts every day, but it's more about like when you have them, like, do you know what I mean? So when you have them on that bad day, do you know what I mean? And that obviously he just said, like, I think, yeah, he was saying just how the movie made it seem like, of course it could generally, or oh no, Charlie was saying that because Charlie was obviously defending Emma to Rachel and Mike. So obviously he was saying like Emma's not a bad person, and that really anyone can have these thoughts. And it's like, yeah, exactly, anyone can have these thoughts. And that's why I do feel like that statement obviously does just hold, like, exactly it holds the weight of the movie, because it's generally like, do you know what I mean, it generally is a bit like, oh, would you actually, yeah, it's generally about, okay, like, you'll think about it but you won't actually go through with it. And that's generally, for me, I'm literally, yeah, that's only all that matters at the end of the day. And I do think that yeah, the movie the movie was just so good anyways, and everyone was good in their roles. And I just, yeah, I think also one thing I forgot to mention actually was when Sage was talking about Charlie, yeah, in the scenes with Charlie and her younger self, I thought that was good, because again, I think that's why he's saying about the romantic element, and he's trying to like talk about the acceptance between two people. And really, exactly, I think why he said you have to accept people for who they are is just like, if you're going to be happy with someone, you kind of do have to accept them for their flaws, which we already know this. Do you know what I mean? You do have to accept someone for who they are, and then who they are is, do you know what I mean, it's obviously the entire package, and it's not just the bits that yeah, not just the bits that you like, but we're saying literally all of them. So even the bits that you do dislike and you have a hard time accepting, and it's about if you're willing enough to do that. You know what I mean? If you're willing enough to actually accept those things, and if you're not, then yeah, literally, if you're not, then that's that then. So then I mean, that's why it's not going to work. But yeah, it was something. And I think Sage said something about how, oh yeah, he thinks it's one of like Emma's, did he say it's one of Emma's, I mean, not Emma, sorry, I keep calling her Emma because of course he's called Emma in the movie, but no, it's one of Zendaya's best roles. But I do think possibly yes, but like for me, my main two Zendaya roles are like what's it, oh yeah, it's Tashi in Challengers, and also Rue in Euphoria. And obviously just, I don't know, even Tashi and Rue as characters, I'm like, wow, they're both, you know, very strong and passionate, and do you know what I mean? And Rue's a recovering, right, a recovering, but she's also, okay, I was going to say she's a drug addict, but kind of also, yes. I mean, when there was moments when obviously, yes, Rue was a recovering one, but she's also back on drugs. Well, she was back on drugs in season 2. On season 3, I don't know, because I don't really know much about that season, because obviously I'm not tuning into it. But like, I still think what it takes for Zendaya to play a character like Rue is a lot, which is why, again, I would just say those are the best two. And then obviously, I mean, I was gonna say like Chani and like MJ. I do think that actually Zendaya is a very good MJ, to be honest, in terms of just the MJ collection, because you know what I mean, lots of people have played MJ, so I'm literally like, yes, but Zendaya does do a good job at that. And then with Chani, I'm not too sure, because I don't know how I feel about that though, really. And I think I did know at first, like when I started watching the Dune movies, I thought I did know, but then I'm also like, I don't know if it's really that good of an acting performance, if I'm honest. I just feel like maybe in these characters anyways. So I would say that, like, I guess all 3 of them, or maybe 4 actually, including Emma, you know, they're all powerful kind of opinionated characters, right? So they all have that, and they're all like a bit loud, and you see her anger, but like I just feel like, yeah, there's just something about, I mean, the like main two that I mentioned, more so than any of the others. And right, that's just me. You tell me your opinion about that, and like what you think. Do you know what I mean? The best Zendaya role that you've seen so far, or even just as in what your favorite is, not the best one, because she still has. Do you know what I mean? She still has a long career to go. She's probably gonna have more roles where we're gonna be a bit like, oh, that's her best one, or that's her best one. That's why I never really think that we should generally use statements like that a lot of the time when it comes to people's careers, because their careers aren't finished, so it's a bit like, oh, we can't literally just put our head on a thingy bob and just like say like, oh yeah, this is their best, when they have so many more bests to make. They've got so many more bests to make, and we really don't know. And that's why I just mean my as I said, my top two are those at the minute. But as I said, it could grow. I think I wrote a Zendaya article one time. No, I wrote a Zendaya article about her fashion, I think, and then after that I wrote one about her actual roles. But I don't know if I finished that article, because I never finish anything. I don't finish anything, and if I do, it takes a super long time. I think that's why when it comes to like my watches, that's why I find it easy to do them, because it's literally about the stuff that I watch, and it's easier because you obviously watch things like every yeah, you watch things like almost every all the time. That's what I mean. We all watch TV a lot, so that's why generally it's like it's easier to do and to write. I mean, anyways, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.